The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. When the angels went away from them to heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go then to Bethlehem to see this thing that has taken place, which the Lord has made known to us." So they went in haste and found Mary and Joseph and the infant lying in the manger. When they saw this, they made known the message that had been told them about this child. All who heard it were amazed by what had been told them by the shepherds. And Mary kept all these things, reflecting on them in her heart. Then the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, just as it had been told to them. The Gospel of the Lord. Well, Merry Christmas to everyone. Feliz Navidad. It's good to see everybody here this morning. Obviously, our church isn't as full as it normally is at Christmas. It was the same yesterday. It's just a crazy year here in the pandemic. I wanted to focus on just a couple of things today during this homily about Christmas that I think sometimes are overlooked. Hermanos, solo quiero enfocar en dos cosas esta mañana. So yesterday we had a mass for the children at 5:30, and there was a little play or an obra that people performed, little children. They talked about their Christmas story, and it was really cute and adorable. And I just wonder if sometimes because of that, sometimes we sentimentalize Christmas a little bit too much, and we forget about the radicality of what Christmas is about. Hermanos, a veces tenemos muchos sentimientos de la Navidad y pensamos que es muy hermosa y esas cosas, pero a veces olvidamos la seriosidad de la Navidad. So two things from the readings today, from the gospel story that we've heard hundreds of times. I just want to point out a couple of things. First of all, the Gospel of Luke tells us the story about the birth of Jesus. And we had this reading last night at Midnight Mass, and we continued it this morning. And the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, starts out saying this: "In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that the whole world should be enrolled, when Quirinius was governor of Syria." Hermanos, la lectura dice que en los días de César Augusto, y cuando el gobernador era Quirinius de Syria. Why is this important? It's important because sometimes when we think about our faith, sometimes there's this impression that our faith is like a fairy tale or something that somebody just made up, or like it's a philosophy. It's important for us to remember that when we read the Bible doesn't talk about the birth of Jesus as taking place in a land far, far away, in some distant era of ages past. Rather, it took place at a concrete time in history, during the days of Caesar Augustus and Quirinius the governor, in a town of Bethlehem. This is a place that you can still go to today. You can visit Bethlehem. You can visit Judea. From other historical documents, we know all about Caesar Augustus and about this Quirinius, the governor of Syria. When we celebrate the Feast of Christmas, it's not just something that we made up. It is a historical fact of history. It's important that we remember that. Our faith isn't just make-believe. Our faith is real, founded in history. Hermanos, tenemos que reconocer que dice la lectura que Jesús nació no en cualquier año, sino el tiempo de César Augusto y el tiempo de Quirinius. Eso significa que nuestra fe, que el nacimiento de Cristo no es un cuento de hadas, ¿no? Es un hecho real de historia. Es muy importante que recordamos eso. Nuestra fe no solo es una esperanza hermosa, un cuento, un sueño, sino es un hecho de historia verdadero. So I think it's important for us to remember that. Now, I want to point out one other thing from this reading, and I think this is very insightful. You ever notice, so a question for everybody, make sure everybody's still awake here today. So there was an angel, well, there were two people, two different kinds of people that came and visited Jesus, right? Who were the two people that came and visited, the two groups? The shepherds and the wise men. Who came first? Very good. Yeah, the shepherds. The shepherds came first. All right? And the shepherds found out about the birth of Jesus by means of the appearance of an angel. And the angel said something very specific to them. The angel said, "Do not be afraid, for I proclaim to you good news of the great joy that will be for all people." You know that phrase, good news? Anybody know what that word is in Greek? It's evangelion, which means the gospel. The gospel. Now, in the days of Jesus, that word had a very specific meaning in that culture. When a king would return from a military victory, he would proclaim the good news of his military victory, the gospel of his victory. So think about that. When the angel appeared to the shepherds, said, "I proclaim to you a victory of great joy." Victory. And then it says that after the angel shared the news, then there appeared a multitude of a heavenly host. Somebody know what a heavenly host is? So we kind of obscure it in our English translations. I appreciate those of you who are trying to guess. The word in Greek is stratios, and a direct translation would be army. It says that when the angel appeared and shared the news of great victory, a heavenly army appeared with the angel. Un ejército de ángeles se apareció con el ángel. Now, I just want to point this out because I think this is very interesting. Imagine what this would have been like, hearing this story for the first time, hearing about the birth of Jesus. If you're a Jew living in Israel, you're living under the Roman Empire, which was a tyrannical reign in many ways to your people. You hated the Roman Empire. And you hear this story about this child being born in the days of Caesar Augustus. Caesar Augustus, who is the most powerful man in the world, who had a great army. And you read about this heavenly army appearing. Caesar Augustus, who is the most privileged man in the world, had everything you could ever need. The true emperor of the world. And yet, you hear about this different king being born. Not in luxury, but in poverty. Not with the protection of a vast palace, but rather being born in a mere cave. Rather than being full of power and might, he came as a tiny little child. It's the irony of the story. And if you were hearing this story for the first time, you would have thought to yourself, how silly this is. But now, think about it 2,000 years later. 2,000 years later, where is Caesar Augustus? Where is the Roman Empire? Where are all those legions of soldiers? They no longer exist. They've all faded away into the lost archives of history. And yet, the Christ child, the mere baby, we still worship him year after year. He still reigns. He truly is the king of the entire world, reigning from heaven. It's amazing, right? And his army of angels still fights alongside us today.